So I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you, oh Lord, and I will not be shaken.
Good morning. Welcome to Heritage Church. My name is Michael. I'm one of the pastors here. We're so glad you're here with us this morning. You talked to Pastor Suzanne a little bit earlier. If you don't mind, pull this announcement sheet before we get ready, before we get started. If you don't mind pulling this announcement sheet out, wave it around at me. Come on. No, you're playing. All right. Take that last part. It actually tears off nicely. Start filling it out. There should be a pen right in front of you. Put your name of the family members that are here with you. Email just information you're comfortable sharing. We won't misuse it at all. We'll send you a little information in an email about our church. You can get off that. You want off that, just click unsubscribe. You're off of it. You never have to worry about it again. But you'll take this at the end of the service. We'll talk about it again. And there might be something you want to fill out on there. In the meantime, put it in the offering bucket on the way out the door. There's also this. Don't drop it. We're going to talk a little bit about this during the message. That will also go in the offering bucket. Just make sure you get your name on these things at the very least. If you're a guest here today, please understand we won't do anything to embarrass you. We're so glad you're here today. You could have been a lot of different places. We're just happy you're here today. But we do have a little gift for you. It's our pocket prayers. It's just a great way to get started on your day. Just a little devotional from us to you, a little letter in there from us. Prayer is a big deal to us. In fact, we started our 21 days of prayer last week. Today was day 7. If you haven't gone on Facebook and taken a look at the videos, we've been recording a video every day to kind of walk with us through this, Pastor Suzanne and I. If you want to, you can get on the website. It's yourheritagechurch.com. There should be a link to 21 days of prayer on that first page. If you scroll down through it and see what it's all about and see where we're at on which day and blah, 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 and all that stuff. So just join us in this prayer. It's going to be so critical as we move forward because we have huge plans for 2019. So we wanted to start off the right way. We're glad you're here for the Renovate series. And we talked about, Pastor Suzanne preached the first 2 messages in this. She did a great job at it. We talked about New Year's resolutions, how we tend to fail within like 3 weeks. You know, we're failing at our resolutions. So we were like, you know, why would we talk about resolutions when we could talk about renovations? Because that's what God really wants to do in your life, right? You know, it's the difference between like just putting a coat of paint on something. It'll look good for a while, right? Or changing the whole layout and flow of a building, you know? It's that kind of difference because resolutions are about behavior modification. And that can only last so long. But if you change the layout and the flow of something, then the behavior kind of follows that. That's a renovation. And that's what God's wanting to do. Like He doesn't want to do just behavior modification. He wants to do life transformation on you. There's a whole difference there. And that's the renovation. And we've talked about these shows on HGTV that we love. We are addicted to them, just straight up. We're addicted to these shows. They're on our TiVo. We watch all of them, all right? So we love these things, you know? And Suzanne said, you know, when you're watching all of these things, you know, probably the first half of each show is just them deciding something, you know? Who are we going to go with? What house are we going to buy? Are we going to do the renovation? Are we going to love it? Are we going to list it? What are we going to do? You know, and they're just deciding. Like the first half of the show is just all the nail biting about deciding to do something, right? But then comes and Suzanne said, you know, when you're deciding, it's an important part of it. Don't skip it. There's a question you need to ask yourself. Will you allow God to renovate your life? That's the question. You have to keep it. Am I going to allow this? Am I going to do it? Because God is the master planner here. God's got the plan for your life. God can help walk with you through this, you know. So am I going to demolish the things that are holding me and decide to move forward with that? Will I allow God to renovate my life? But about halfway through each of these shows comes my favorite personal day of each of these shows. Do you know what it is? Demo day, right? You get to tear stuff up, right? You get to swing the hammer, you know? And it's not just tearing stuff down. I love to tear things down. I love to destroy things. That's great. It's not just that. It's the idea that the owner themselves gets a little skin in the game. That they're pitching in, that they're getting to help. Because there's some shows, and it's rare where it happens, where the homeowner or homeowners are actually quite skilled in doing this. They just, for whatever reason, hadn't gotten into it. And the homeowners want to add to the bottom line by taking their time and their effort and pitching in and being part of the renovation, right? And I like, because that's me, ooh, ooh, ooh. I take vacation to do this, right? I'd love this stuff. I'd love to pitch in. I'd love to do things. I'd love to jump in there and work on stuff like that. I love that. And so for us, in what we're talking about, it changes the question from will you allow God to renovate your life to will you join God in the renovation? That's a big question. See, you can just decide all day long and do nothing. And that is a decision, you know. But at what point are you going to jump in and do something? When are you going to add your blood, sweat, and tears to the bottom line? When are you going to have skin in the game? When are you going to do that? But here's the thing. If you say it, before you say anything, before you decide whether or not you're going to join God in the renovation, just understand this. When you say yes, and you pick up your tool belt, you strap it on, and you start to go to work, you just put a big old target on your back. Good news, huh? Hey, yay, beat me in. I want to do it, right? You just put a big old target on your back because you will face some opposition. There is something counter God in this world. There is something at work, whether you can see it or not, you can feel the forces of it, that goes against the work of God. You could say it's anti-God or anti-Christ, you know, right? There's some force, whether you believe in a devil or not, is beside the point. There's some force that pushes it back against God doing any kind of renovation personally or through the church. It's just there. And if you don't believe in a devil, well, the Apostle Paul would disagree with you because he was a church planter. And let me tell you, if you want to catch the devil's attention, plant a church. Me and Suzanne planted churches. Oh, you catch the devil's attention, all right. Because you can sit on your hands all day and just think about things, and Satan's fine with that. He's just okay with that. You can sit and try to decide and think things through all day long, but you make a move, oh, he's on you. He's on you. And listen to what Paul said. And Paul didn't pull any punches about this. Listen to what he said. He said, put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle isn't against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. They're coming after you. You better get some thick skin. You better buckle up, buttercup. It's about to get rough. You better put your big girl and big boy panties on when you say yes, because something's coming after you. And we don't preach about the devil a lot. I heard one guy say it's because I don't want to give him any airtime. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, we're about the good news, not the bad news. But the bad news is coming after you when you say yes. You got to understand that when you join God in the renovation, you're going to face opposition. And it comes in a couple of different forms, so you got to be aware of both. The first one is just internal opposition. It's stuff that comes up inside of you, that wells up inside of you. It's usually based on some brokenness or some lie that you've believed, something that kind of wells up in you and comes out and short circuits it before you get started, right? Or while you're along the way, it causes you to quit. You know, throughout this whole series, we're talking about the Nehemiah, the man who came back to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. And I know y'all are sick of talking about walls. And do not hijack this message for your purposes, political, either way, all right? But to them, to that city in that period of time, a wall was critical. You were just fair game to any tribe that wanted to come and trample you down and use you, take your kids off to slavery, whatever. If you did not have a wall to protect yourself, you were fair game. It was wide open, and it was wide open on that town, because when Nebuchadnezzar tore down that city and tore down that wall and tore down that temple, he left them bare. And then he deported all their leaders, so there was nobody that could lead the charge to rebuild it. So he left basically defenseless, kind of peasant-class folks in that town, and they were being picked off. And so when Nehemiah came, it broke his heart, because there's never a good disaster that somebody doesn't try to take advantage of. And there were enemies there who were trying to take advantage of this. And they were taking advantage of the people, and they didn't like it. They didn't like it that Nehemiah stepped up and wanted to rebuild this wall, wanted to defend the people once again. And man, they said some bad stuff about him. Listen to him. He said, he ridiculed the Jews. This is this guy named Sanballat. He's the leader. He's the chief thug. Right? He ridiculed the Jews. He said, what are these feeble Jews doing? Will they restore their wall? Will they offer sacrifices they're going to finish in a day? Can they bring the stones back to life from these heaps of rubble, burned as they are? Understand, these walls have been down for a while, right? These people, that's the bad part about when people critique you like that, or you receive something like that, or the lies, they got a little bit of truth in them. And so you have to take it with a grain of salt, but sometimes you don't. You just swallow it, hook, line, and sinker, and they did. Yeah, we are kind of feeble right now. We're kind of weak, We don't have any of our leaders. The temple isn't even functional like it should be. No, this is going to take forever because it's 2.5 miles of wall, an average of 40 foot high, and it's pretty thick because you got to have people on top of it to guard it, right? That's a lot of wall, and we're going to have to make it from these rocks that have been busted and just laying everywhere. This is a big job, right? And so, yeah, there's a little bit of truth there. And, if you already feel that way about yourself, you're going to quit before you even really get started. If you feel like, if you're buying the lies, and it doesn't have to be something somebody's saying to you right now. It could have been something somebody said to you decades ago. And you lived through that lie. If you're buying those lies, you're going to live through them. And you might have good intentions to start, but you're going to just you're going to gut yourself along the way and quit. And as a church, we have some huge plans going into 2019 and beyond. We had our dream team praying about it, and our leadership's coming together, and we got great plans moving forward. But if we think we're incapable of it, then we're going to operate out of insecurity, out of weakness, from a point of, it's doomed to fail, hopelessness. And you know what? We're not going to operate out of faith and strength and the power that God provides. We're just going to operate out of weakness. The world looks at the church, at us, and, you can't blame them for it. Some of it we deserve, right? There's a little bit of truth to it. They see the church as a joke, the outside world. I hope you know that, right? They see us as kind of a joke. We're in here worshiping, giving our money, taking our time every week, sometimes on a daily basis, sacrificing to this God that we can't see, and blah, blah, blah. And, what a joke. They're just preying on weak people and blah, blah. The world sees us as a joke. And you know what? That's besides the point. You know what the real point is? Do you see your church as a joke? Do you see it as a joke? Or is your internal judgment of the church that we're a joke, that we can't really do anything, that we're just getting along as best we can? Because if you do, you're going to operate out of fear and insecurity and weakness instead of faith and strength and power. If we're going to renovate this world with God, we're going to face some opposition. And the other is the external. Here's the bad part about Satan. He doesn't come at you directly. There's not some goat dude with a pitchfork and horns, right, coming at you. Just not going to happen, right? He'll come at you through a situation or some emergency that sucks all your energy and attention to it. But usually, it's a person. Some person's going to come at you. And it's not always a physical threat. Sometimes it might be. If you're in an abusive relationship, it might be a physical threat. For them, it was a physical threat. Nehemiah heard that their enemies were saying things like, before they know it or see us, we'll be right there among them and we'll kill them and put an end to their work. They were gathering forces to come attack them to get them to quit. And they didn't want to kill them all. These are people they were making their living off of, right? They're abusing and using these people, but they wanted them to quit. You think about that. When you're trying to make changes in your life, you're trying to transform your life, you're trying to rearrange things in your life, how is it sometimes that people come and undermine that for you? Think about weight loss, right? How many people in here have been on a weight loss program that you had a friend undermine? That they tempted you? Yeah. What is that? That they're sitting there drinking beer and eating, chips in front of you, and you're like, dude, I'm on protein bars, right? Don't do that. Ah, you stink. Yeah, I'm going to eat my chips and drink my beer. And you can't touch that stuff because you're dedicated. And you're trying to do your best. And you're trying to do all this. I mean, what is it? Are they insecure? Do they like it because you're fat? Because they don't feel bad about their being fat? Do they, I mean, what is it? Why are they coming at you like that and trying to, like, really undermining you? You know, what is it about them that's going to do that? Why are they coming at you like that? I can guarantee you, as a church, when we start engaging in the renovation that God has for this area of town, when we start doing that and we start laying and we start attacking these plans, Satan is going to find the most insecure person among us, and it's not going to be who you think it is. It's going to come out of the blue because it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks. And that person's going to stand up and say, well, we just can't do this. And they're going to feel fully justified in their head about why you can't do it. And they're going to have a list of points about why you can't do it. But I can guarantee you they're going to be the only voice in the room doing that. And they're going to be undermining you. They're going to be talking about you. You're going to be doing it. We've had this happen to us over and over again. Because when you plant churches, somebody doesn't like when it changes. And that's the nature of the beast. It's changing. It always changes. And there's some people that are not change resilient. And Satan will use them to justify undermining what you're doing as a church. And you know what? They don't know that that's what's driving them. And so you try your best to be graceful with them, but you have to go, come on, just be ready for it. You know, if you're gonna renovate with God, if you're gonna join God in God's renovation, you're gonna face some opposition. So what do you do about it? Number one thing you do is you plan for it. Be ready for it. You know, I don't know. Did any of you ever been in a fight before? I have. It's not, I'm bragging about it at all, no. I mean, or at least watch boxing or MMA. Do you come into the ring with your hands down and your chin out? No, you want to get laid out if you do that, right? You don't lead with your chin and your hands down. You put your hands up, right? Put your hands up so that at the very least you can absorb the blows that are going to come, right? At the very least, and maybe hit back, right? When we're doing renovation for God, we'd better have our hands up. But it's like this, praying to God. Because this is your defense. It's how you're going to absorb the blows, and it's your offense. You better put your hands up. Listen to what Nehemiah did. He said, their enemies, all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and stir up trouble against it. But we prayed to our God, and we posted a guard day and night to meet this threat. You know, when you start making renovations on your life, you better get used to having your hands up praying to God. Pray to God. This is your offense and your defense. But not only as an individual, when you're making changes, should you have your hands up, you better have them out. Plan that threat's going to come. And you better know in your head what your boundaries are for people, especially if you're changing a broken relationship or a bad dynamic at work or how you and your kids get along or something like that, because they're going to come back at you and push back, right? And you better know where your boundaries are, and you better be able to say, hey, you're kind of crossing a line right here. Because a lot of times they don't know they're doing it. They're just fighting against the change, right? You're crossing a line. I need you to back up a little bit and quit coming at me. You're going to have to be strong. You have to plan for that, okay? Because you can't think in the moment. When somebody's throwing blows at you, you can't really think all that well, right? You have to plan to be able to say that to people. And you don't say it in a mean way. You just say it in a firm way. In a firm way. You know, if we're going to join God in the renovation, we better plan for some opposition. And you know, even it doesn't matter how much you plan. When you take a hit, you take a hit. Right? And it's going to hurt. It's going to sting because usually it's from somebody you know, maybe even somebody really close to you, somebody you trusted that just didn't understand and came at you because of their own fears and their own insecurities. And it's going to hurt. It's going to sting. It's going to leave a mark. Right? So not only should you plan, you got to find a higher purpose for what you're doing. You really do. Listen to what Nehemiah says to him. He says, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome. And if that's not enough for you, fight for your families, for your sons, for your daughters, for your wives, for your homes. Fight for it. Find a reason that's over and above and beyond you to enter into this fight, and moreover, to stay in this fight. Because when you get that first hit, if you're going to back off, what's the sense? All you did is reaffirm that what they're doing works and that you're too weak to fight back. You're too weak to set boundaries for people. You know, it's crazy, man. When you're trying to renovate yourself and renovate your life and become more Christ-like, and if your only motivation for doing that is that it makes me happy to be a different way, it is fulfilling to me to make this change. If that's your only motivation, as soon as you get pushback, as soon as you start taking some hits, it's not going to be so happy anymore. And you're going to quit. That can't be your only motivation for doing it. It's got to be because it's healthy for my family. It's healthy for me. It's healthy for the world around me if I make these changes now. God wants me to do this, and I can't do it in the system I'm in right now, and I have to make these changes. It's got to be something over and above. It's got to be because I'm fighting for my home. I'm fighting for my families. I'm fighting for my sons and daughters. I'm fighting for my spouse. You got to have a higher purpose. You got to have a bigger reason other than just because it makes me happy. You know, when we serve at church, and that's the insert here, is this is joining the team. This is being on the Reno team right here. When we fill this out and we say we're going to be a part of it, here's the truth. If the only reason you ever serve at church is because it's fulfilling, because it makes me feel good to serve, because we're wired like that. That is a result of serving God. You do get benefit from it. But if that's your only reason, if it's not about a higher call of God to do this, then the first time you take a hit, the first time somebody is snarky with you at church, the first time you're offended, the first time you're asked to make a sacrifice and give up some of your time, all of a sudden, it's not so fulfilling anymore, and I just quit. You've got to find a higher purpose, because the enemy will find wherever that little chink in your armor is, and that's where you're taking the arrow, right there. And if your purpose is weak, you're weak. Because it just gets so uncomfortable, not worth it. I'll just move on. My only purpose is being happy, and the devil would love for you to be happy and not do anything for God. So you got to find your higher purpose. And lastly, you got to put your head down and do the work. You got to put your head down and do the work. Well, listen to what Nehemiah said. He said, we rebuilt the wall till all of it reached half its height. That's 2.5 miles of wall up to about 20 feet. And you got to know that was one of his goals on his goal list. Short-term goals, get it to half height, because that's the easy half, right? The hard half is putting it up above your head. The easy half is the first 20 feet, right? But when we get there, man, we're going to celebrate it. And he did. We're going to celebrate this. We hit a goal. It might not be the end of it, but we hit a goal. And there's nothing that feels better than hitting a goal, right? I am so stinking goal-oriented. I have checklists for my checklist. I love marking them off, right? I'm such a big nerd. I love hitting that check. And the bigger the goal, the better, right? The more satisfaction you get, right? There's something to be said for feeling that satisfaction and that inspiration of having hit a goal, because it means you can hit the next one, right? And the next one, and the next one. All of a sudden, this isn't so insurmountable. I can do this. I can knock this out of the park, right? There's nothing more inspiring than doing that. When Suzanne and I, Suzanne talked about this summer, we did a home renovation on our own home, which I don't recommend doing it while you're living there. God. But we were forced to move in a little bit early because of the situation. So we're in there, we're doing this reno, man. And I'm such a nerd. I got the spreadsheets, I got the list of stuff doing. And she's got Post-it notes. She's like, pretty Post-it notes on the fridge. And here's this task and this goal and this goal and this goal. And man, there's nothing felt better than pulling one of those Post-it notes off and crumpling it up and throwing it in the trash, getting my little highlighter off and marking my little nerdy spreadsheet, that I did it, Nothing felt better because it meant we were that much closer to our ultimate goal, right? And I love doing that. It's so inspiring. It feels good. And here's the funny part. It didn't matter whether or not I hit the goal. If one of my friends, and we had a lot of friends come and help, and I thank you, you know who you are. If one of my friends hit the goal for me, it felt every bit as good. In fact, it was even better because now I know I got people on my side. Because I'm the ultimate DIYer. And it isn't because I'm handy naturally. I had to become handy because I was a do-it-yourself kind of person. Because I never trusted anybody. I never trusted anybody growing up. I didn't have a community that I knew would come around me. And I grew up that way, and I became handy because I knew if I was going to get something, I had to do it myself. I just knew it because I didn't trust people, right? And it wasn't until I met Jesus, and then I met his family, the church, that I started to understand the nature of the way life should be. And it's meant to be done together. It's meant to be done in community. And it's great. It's every bit as good to me now to watch somebody else hit a goal than it is to hit me hit a goal. Because if they win, I win. If I win, they win. That's what church is about. That's what community is about. It's about winning this thing together. Doing great at life together, supporting each other, working with all our heart together, but you gotta put your head down and work. At some point, you gotta jump in, put your tool belt on, and get to it. There's nothing more inspiring than tackling a big God project together. But you know what's even more inspiring than that? Is the little God projects in the seats next to you all over the sanctuary. And that's why we say we're disciples that make disciples. We're followers of Christ that help other people follow. We're learners who also teach. We're renovators who help other people get into the renovation business. There's nothing more inspiring than watching one of your new brothers and sisters get it, to have a light bulb go on, to have their heart changed and transformed, to watch them go through a renovation themselves and watch their lives change. There is nothing more inspiring than that, but we got to put our heads down and work. We got to do the work. You know, when you get into the renovation game with God, you got to prepare for pushback. Right. Whenever you change an existing thing, a system, a relationship, a government, whatever, a church, whenever you change it, there are people that are in that system that are not change resist. They're not change resilient. They're change resistant. They're late adopters. They're not going to come along willingly because they like where it is, because they're comfortable where it is. And as much good intention as those kind of people would have, Satan will use that person to slow you down, to push back on you, to even get in your face, to even try to intimidate you. You need to prepare for pushback. So you need to get prepared. That's what they did. They said the work is extensive and spread out, and we're widely separated. We can be picked off one by one from each other along the wall. Wherever you hear the sound of the trumpet, join us there, and our God will fight for us. That's what the church is. And when we sound the trumpet, when we throw up the prayers, when we put out the call for people to join us, we ought to come together and make something happen. And here's the fun part. It's God's fight. God didn't call us into this to be lambs to the slaughter. You're going to face opposition, but most of it's just noise and distraction, frankly. It's trying to pick at the weakest parts of us as people to get us to quit. Why does Satan want this to not happen so bad? This is God's fight, and God will fight for us, but he's asking us to come together and trust not just God, but each other. So are you going to join God in the renovation?